Hey guys, today we are going to be going through all the books I've read this summer, which is my June, July, and August wrap up. I have said time and time again, oh, my wrap up's coming, and it hasn't been coming. I haven't done it. Here we are. I have a huge stack. We're gonna go kind of fast, but also probably not very fast because I have a lot of thoughts on a lot of books and a lot of ones I promised you I would give you more thoughts on and I haven't yet. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right in and we're gonna start with June. Starting off super strong. I read The Secret Book of Flora Lee. This book is magical realism, mystery, and historical fiction kind of all wrapped up into one. This follows Hazel and Flora. This is set during, it's a then and now perspective. So 20 years ago, Hazel's little sister Flora disappeared at like the height of the war. And now it's 20 years later and Hazel has been given this clue as to like what's happened to her little sister. She told her this story to kind of calm her down during the war. And now this story that only her little sister knew has come into the bookstore she works in as a children's book. She's like, clearly Flora told someone, and who did she tell? I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. There was a plot twist I did not see coming. A part made me cry. I loved this book. I ended up actually getting it signed because the author came to where I used to live, and so I had one of my good friends take it and get it signed for me, which I love. But this was 5 stars, one of my favorite books of the year so far. Ooh, okay. We're going from great to bad. I read After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I read this while my husband was gone for 6 weeks, which I think was a huge mistake because I hated this book. This book is about a couple who basically decide maybe they should have a trial separation kind of thing. They're not going to speak to each other for a year. They can date other people. They can sleep with other people. And then one day the wife in this relationship makes the mistake of basically opening her husband's email because she wants to see if like what he's been up to, and finds out that he's been writing letters to her as email drafts and not sending them. This just follows them and their relationship, and it was painful. I mean, like, I think maybe I would have liked this if I hadn't read it when my husband was gone, because I just wanted to give my husband a hug and like tell him I appreciated him. And I couldn't do that because he was a bajillion miles away. This was not for me. Do not read this if you're sad. 2 stars. That is, I have strong feelings on that. Then I entered my cowboy romance era with Done and Dusted. I loved this book. I ate this up. This was so freaking good. This follows Clementine and, oh my gosh, Luke Brooks. How could I forget Luke Brooks' name? And this is brother's best friend. And Clementine is a barrel racer, and she's kind of come home because she's got this injury sort of thing, and she's working through some stuff and she doesn't want to tell anybody, but she doesn't normally come home. And Luke Brooks was always this kind of like crazy bad boy, didn't follow the rules, had no respect for authority, and now he owns a business, and she's like, why is this? Kind of was giving me like when Nick gets his life together in New Girl and Jess is like, why is this hot? Like, that's kind of Clementine in this book. I love this. All the cowboy things, Luke Brooks. I cannot wait for the next book following the next brother, or for following one of Clementine's brothers. I think it's gonna be so freaking good. So if you've read things like Chestnut Springs or any of those and you haven't picked this up yet, you've got to. I mean, pick it up just because the cover's cute on its own. I gave this 4.5 stars because it could have been like written maybe a little bit better, but this was also a debut and I literally loved it. Whew, okay, hang on, water break. Oh, doing these kills my back. Oh my God. I think I just died. I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This was a good follow-up to like Fourth Wing. I read this pretty quick after I read Fourth Wing at the end of May. And this was giving fantasy Hunger Games energy, and I really enjoyed it. It's on KU. It's been a while since I read vampires, but I still enjoyed it. I give this one like 4 stars because the action was really great, but I don't think it was a little, I don't know if I'd even say slow burn, but it just wasn't a 5-star read for me, but I still really enjoyed it and I would recommend it if you're reading fantasy. I then read Six Scorched Roses, which is the novella between the first book and Ashes of the Star-Cursed King, and I really loved this. Sometimes I feel like you can't give a novella 5 stars because it's just such a short story, but I liked this as much as I liked the first book, so I gave it 4 stars. It follows, I cannot even remember their names. Vale is the vampire's name, and I cannot think of the female female main character's name. Follows this human woman who's trying to cure her sister and like the other townspeople of this illness, and she thinks like maybe vampire blood is the answer, and she like wanders off to this like vampire that like lives locally, and she asks him for help, and he's kind of like, why would I help you? And then, you know, he ends up helping her. I really enjoyed Vale's character and the plot of this one as a whole, and it's fun seeing them in the second book because I just recently read the second book, but I thought that was neat that they, you know, they were there. And I guess it helps them make a little bit more sense. You totally, I think, could read the second book without having read the novella and it would be totally fine. But I liked it because I knew who they were. And Lilith, that's her name. And I really enjoyed them. I read my first Lucy Score book in June, Maggie Moves On. This was basically HGTV crack, but in a book form. I honestly really liked it. All of Lucy Score's books, I feel like, are super long. Get this woman into fantasy so she can write some long books. But it was a little too long for me, and it was a little insta-lovey in the beginning. I said that in my reading vlog with this video, which was my reading summary books for a week video. But the insta-love kind of faded, and I ended up enjoying the majority of the characters, and I really liked where this plot went in this book. So I gave this 4 stars. It was really good, and it made me want to read more of Lucy Score's writing. I read Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. This was very Lord of the Flies-esque, and wasn't anything to like rave about in my opinion, but definitely wasn't bad, so 3 stars even for me. I liked it. I saw some stuff coming. Some stuff totally came out of left field, and I was like, whoa. But this is like a perfect beach read summary thriller if that's what you're looking for. Other than that, I would say there's probably other thrillers that you could read. It wasn't scary. It definitely had you kind of being like, whoa, what's happening? But that's kind of the gist of that one for me. Remarkably Bright Creatures. Marcellus the Octopus. I love him. I love him. This book, 4.5 stars because it was a little slow to get into, but overall I really, really loved this book. This follows a bunch of different people and kind of you're learning how they're interconnected and what's going on. And there's an octopus and you kind of get his like inner thoughts. He can't speak to people, but he's kind of like a bit of a trickster, and he does funny things like getting out of his tank at night when he thinks no one's there. And you get his inner monologue. And Marcellus the Octopus is arguably the best character of this book. If you've read this, you totally get it. But I love this. This was a very beautiful story, very heartwarming. It was really sweet and great. And honestly, this is one of those books that I feel like you can't really explain. Like you just have to read it. You just have to say, okay, these other people are telling me that it was good. I'm gonna read it. It's one of those. You know what I mean? And then finally in June, I read When in Rome, and I loved this. This is definitely in my like top tier category of romances. I gave this 5 stars. This is the Hannah Montana movie. It's pretty much the Hannah Montana movie if Hannah Montana had willingly gone into the countryside. This follows Amelia, and she's like obsessed with Audrey Hepburn, and so she decides she wants to go to the closest Rome she can find, and she ends up in Rome, Kentucky. I loved this. This is totally Grumpy Sunshine to a T. I loved all the sisters. I loved the small town energy. I mean, this was perfect. I was like kicking my feet and giggling when I read this, and I loved it. But which is why, starting in July, I read Practice Makes Perfect. This one was not as good as When in Rome to me, but I still really, really enjoyed it, and I would absolutely recommend the series, I guess, as a whole. I'm hoping we get some of his other sisters, but this follows the main male character from When in Rome's, one of his sisters that owns a flower shop, and it's her relationship with Amelia's moody, hot bodyguard. And I really liked it. I wish she wasn't so like, golly gee willikers, like that got a little bit annoying at times, which is why it's 4 stars to me instead of 5. But overall, I love these. They're cute little like cotton candy romances. I totally recommend them. They're short, sweet, and fun. Also in July, I read The Lost Apothecary. This was a book of the month pick ages ago. I mean, doesn't it say it on the cover? March 2021. And people were all over BookTok complaining. They were like, this is not a fantasy book. Why was this pitched as a fantasy book on Book of the Month? To that I say, I do not know. Because this is magical realism, historical fiction. This is not a fantasy book, magical realism, historical fiction. I look like I have half my head shaved. Let's just give her a little flounce. Okay. I think that's better, right? Do I look less crazy? I hope I do. But anyways, this was so good. I really enjoyed this. I guess some people thought it was going to be a little bit more like intense because you're following a botanist. No. A botanist? Sarah Beth. You're following this apothecary, and basically her whole thing is that she makes poisons for women to kill men. She refuses to give poisons to kill women though. That's kind of, what causes the climactic point in this book. I really enjoyed this. I think I gave this 4 stars, maybe 4.5. Let's double check. 4. I gave this 4 stars, but it was really good. If you're into magical realism, I really think you should pick this up. I ate this up. I ate this up. I ate this up. I loved this. I want everyone to read this. And if you didn't like it, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Because I loved it. This follows a wedding planner and a reluctant florist. He's the reluctant florist. They were together, but now they're not together. They haven't spoken in ages, and she's doing a celebrity wedding, and the only florist they want is Elliot Bloom. The banter, the wit, the tension, 8 million stars. I read Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I gave this 4 stars. It was good. I liked the mystery aspect. I do feel like we were like really working through trauma really quickly, which was kind of surprising to me. Like I was like, let's take a second to deal with all the things that are happening to us, but that wasn't happening, I guess. Again, so long. Why are Lucy Score's books like thicker than my fantasy books? I did really like it. I'm excited to read the second one. This follows Naomi and, oh my gosh, is his name Knox? Am I dumb? Yes, Naomi and Knox. This follows Naomi and Knox, and Naomi's sister Tina basically is a terrible scumbag of the earth, and they look identical and everyone thinks that Naomi is Tina. They keep calling her not Tina. Knox is very grumpy. Naomi is trying to fix her whole life because it's been turned upside down by herself and her sister. And it was really enjoyable. I really liked it. I loved the family and how everybody was so cute in the small town. I'm really excited for the book, the third book, for that guy to have his book. I'm excited to read the second book too. I finally finished the Care of All series. I read Finale. I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't as good to me as Care of All and Legendary were, but I still really enjoyed it. It was a good conclusion to the series. It followed both of the sisters pretty well. I kind of wish we got more of Scarlet in this, but I still really overall liked the book and I loved the series. The series is probably a 5-star series for me. I really would recommend it. I love the magic and the mysticalness that is this trilogy. I read The Darkening, 1.5 stars. It's not great. It had potential, but it's not there. I did not enjoy it at all. Wouldn't really recommend it. I don't feel like a lot of the stuff was fleshed out. I really just wanted the book to end. We're gonna move on. A Curse of Shadows and Ice is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's pretty short, 200 pages. I really liked it. It was a really quick read. It wasn't anything that I'm like gonna scream from the rooftops. It was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The main character guy, I feel like really took an aggressive approach to everything, but again, he is supposed to be the beast, so what are you gonna do, I guess? I just have some critiques for him about his way to approach women, but 3 stars, nothing crazy, wasn't bad. I read Sorcery of Thorns. This was maybe a little bit too YA for me, and that was its problem, which I really don't feel like is a fair thing to rate a YA book on, because I'm not necessarily its intended audience. Overall, I enjoyed the themes of the books, the theme of the book. The magical books aspect was really cool, but I do feel like it was kind of jumpy, the plot was, and it didn't do necessarily what I thought it was gonna do. There were some things that I was expecting, but a lot of it I was just like, why is this happening? And how did we get here? This one was definitely 3 stars. And then my last July read was One Dark Window. I cannot wait for the second book to come out. This was so good. Very unique magic. If you haven't read this or heard about this, I mean, holy cow, hop on this bandwagon. This book was so good. The magic was like, it's card magic, I guess is how it is, but you learn all the lore about it in the book. But it was, I mean, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And the way that book ended, I couldn't tell you the last time I was so unbelievably aghast at how a book ended. It hurt me the way that book ended, and I need the next one right now. I need it right now. Did I say 5 stars? 5 stars for One Dark Window. So good. Moving on to August, I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This was maybe 3.5. Yeah, 3.5. I have a lot of questions, you know, like it's kind of like in the horror movies when you're like, why did you open the door and go to the basement? Like I have so many questions for this woman. Why she did anything she did in this book. I need to know, because I wouldn't have done that. Not if my best friend had been murdered by a serial killer. I'll tell you that right now. There were some twists I wasn't expecting. Overall, it was a pretty good thriller. It was really quick. I read it in one sitting. It made me nervous. I'm glad I didn't read it in the car or anything. Nothing too crazy of a thriller. I read The Nanny, and I know this book is kind of having its moment right now. I just do not think it was for me. I don't mind spice, but it's not my favorite. So this one's like a 2.5 leaning to 3. Like I think if you really like spice, I think you'd really like this book, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. It was good, the story was cute. I felt like it kind of got a little jumpy there in the middle. I felt like it started out stronger than it ended, unfortunately. But it follows this girl who used to have an OnlyFans and now she's a nanny, and the guy she's nannying for, like his daughter, he was like her biggest fan on OnlyFans. So that's that premise. I read, let's find the first one. Y'all, my hips, I'm too old to sit on the floor, I guess, because my hips. I read Wildcard and Warcross. Warcross is the first one. This is a sci-fi duology following this fun like video game that's set in this kind of like VR headset thing that everybody's got nowadays. It was so good. 5 stars for the first one, 4.5 for the second one. I loved these. I absolutely recommend them. These were a great time, and there was a lot of stuff I didn't see coming, even though I thought I knew a spoiler, but I didn't. I'm sorry, they are so reflective. Like, I feel like I'm like one of those people trying to tan at the beach. I loved them. Very good. Kind of got me in a sci-fi mood. I'm hoping to read another sci-fi book because I really enjoyed these. This follows like a girl who's a bounty hunter, and she kind of glitches into the championship game of this video game, and the head of the company is basically like, I want you to help me with something, I need a hacker. So he hires her, and that is what this is about. I was on the edge of my seat like the whole time. It was so good. Divine freaking Rivals. Roman Kit. That's all I have to say to you is Roman Kit. I loved him. I loved the magical typewriters, the God War, all of this crazy stuff that's going on in this book. I need the second book. I already loved Rebecca Ross because I loved River Enchanted, but if you haven't picked up Divine Rivals, this is your sign that you absolutely need to. It was so good. 5 million stars. I mean, truly amazing. The Final Gambit. I finally read the last book in the Inheritance Games trilogy, and I have to say this one disappointed me a bit, and I really loved the first two, so I was a bit sad to be let down by this one. I gave it 3 stars, maybe 3.5 if I'm feeling a little extra generous. It was okay. It didn't wrap up necessarily how I had been hoping it would wrap up, but I'm still satisfied with the ending, and I'm glad I read the series. I think I might have liked this better if I had read all 3 really quickly, because I do really like Jennifer Barnes' writing, although she said the old man a million times. In my reading vlog, I think I counted, and on 2 pages, it was there at least 4 times. I read In a New York Minute, and this book was a big disappointment to me because it started out so strong. The opener for this book was great, and then I feel like it all went downhill from there. So it's 2 stars. This follows this girl and guy, and they have this really funny kind of like meet cute that goes viral on the internet, and so they go on like essentially like the Today Show to talk about it, and then they keep running into each other. That's it. That's the book. It wasn't for me. This was 2 stars. Take the Lead. This is basically Dancing with the Stars in a book. He is the star, she is the dancer that's already on the show, and his family is like on this like Alaskan survival show that they have that's about their family living in the wilderness. Like they don't go into town and things like that. And it was really good. I honestly really liked it. I think there's another book in this dance off series, and I'm probably gonna pick it up because I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. Ugh! 5 freaking stars for yours truly. I loved this. Jacob Maddox, anxiety representation. My heart. I too am an anxious human being who wants a picture of where I need to park my car when I arrive somewhere. I appreciated that. But this follows Brianna and Jacob as they kind of have this terrible first meeting as he's a new doctor at the hospital that they're at. They're both having kind of a bad time in life right now, and they need a friend. And so they start writing letters to each other, and then it becomes fake dating. I love a good fake dating trope. I read Ashes in the Star-Cursed King, which was the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. It was okay. I didn't like it as much as the first one. It was much more chill, but I do love court politics, so I did enjoy that, but I felt like we were just doing a lot of sitting around waiting and we weren't getting a lot of answers. 3.5 for me on that one. I would still recommend reading the duology. I enjoyed it a lot. And then I just recently read Trial of the Sun Queen. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. This got 5 stars. Go read this. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I loved this. This follows Lore as she has been, it opens with her in a prison, and I won't lie, the beginning was kind of confusing. I was like, where is this going? And then essentially it's kind of like The Selection, which is like The Bachelor, but with Faye and more adult, and it was so good. This competition was super intense. These girls were crazy. I was like, holy crap, what's happening? What's going on? What do they know that we don't know? And I will say there were things that I immediately could figure out. They were like, oh, they're looking for this. And I was like, well, so that's this. You know, I knew that. I knew some, not spoilers, but I figured some things out pretty easily. But I don't feel like that injured my reading experience at all because it was still so good. And some of these reveals were like freaking nuts, like things that I was not expecting. I was like, wait, what the crap? Anyways, so 5 stars. I'm currently reading the second one, Rule of the Aurora King. I feel like this one is also gonna be 5 stars. I'm obsessed with it and it will be probably my last read of August. I'm hoping I finish it, maybe tonight. It's the 30th. But that is everything I've read in the last 3 months. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you wanted me to go more in depth about any of them, let me know and maybe I can make some TikToks or reels about them, or YouTube shorts. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you next time.